6 episodes away from that magic number of 200. Can't wait for that next week. But today is episode 194 with Sarah Ruffcorn. Let's go. Good morning, everybody. So happy to have you joining us for today's episode of Standing Out, episode 194. And it is Wednesday, everybody. So hope you're having a fabulous week. We are marching right along to episode 200, which is going to happen next Thursday. And we have a special guest host, the very popular and wonderful and soothing voice, Matt Leffler, is going to be our guest host that day along with me. And we're going to be celebrating episodes 101 to 200. So make sure you join us on Thursday next week for episode 200. Before we get started today, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, the TAFs, the good guys in freight factoring, helping keep the owner-operators and carriers on the road with cash flow resources, discounts on fuel, tires, and so many other needs to help you out. So if you're behind the wheel of a truck, first of all, thank you so much for what you do. You guys are the heroes of the supply chain. We appreciate you. Be sure to go over to tafs.com, let them know that Trey sent you, or make it even easier on yourself and click on the link that Ruth is going to put in the comments today. That takes you right to my landing page so they know that I sent you. Well, as mentioned earlier, we've got a lot of great things going on here. We got some awesome episodes this week leading up to episode 200. So come back tomorrow for Kyle Locker. We're going to be talking about his new role as Chief of Staff at Fox Logistics. And on Friday, can't wait to have Michael Caney, my good friend, who is now the Chief Commercial Officer at Highway. He'll be on the show on Friday. So come back for those episodes again at 10:30 a.m. Central and every day for an episode of Standing Out, daily podcast about sales, marketing, and leadership. And today's guest is no exception. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to have her on the show. Got a chance to meet her about a year and a half ago, a part of their foundation, Trinity, the Trinity Foundation, their charity. And I got a chance to participate in their golf tournament and learn more about their business and what they're doing, and specifically about her leadership, which I can't wait to talk about today. So please welcome the president of Trinity Logistics, Sarah Ruffcorn. Hey, Sarah, how are you doing?
Oh, good. How are you?
Man, it is so great to have you on the show. I've been looking forward to this episode for a long time, and the things we're going to unpack today about leadership. So just thank you so much for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thanks for
How's
having
everything in beautiful Delaware?
Well, it's very rainy today. We're getting a lot of rain, but at least it's warm. We're not getting snow, so that's a good thing.
Not yet. It's on the way, I'm sure, but not yet.
Right.
It's that time of year, a little rain, some clouds, not too bad. Well, I'd never really been to Delaware before we had a chance to connect. But before we talk about that event, take 30 seconds to tell everybody just a little bit about yourself and about what's going on over at Trinity Logistics.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Sarah Ruffcorn, and I am the president of Trinity. I've been at Trinity for a little over 20 years. Which is very hard to believe. Yes, I color my hair. Everybody asks that question. So I started off entry level here at Trinity, book and freight, got really good at building some great career relationships, and just have had a lot of opportunity, through the years. So at Trinity, we are a third-party logistics company. We specialize in specifically truckload and LTL, and we also have a fantastic mix of technology that we offer out to shippers and to carriers. And we also, move dray and expedite and international. And so we kind of have a whole host and suite of services that we offer here at Trinity. So.
Pretty much do it all. And 2 decades at a company is an incredible tenure. I don't know how Trinity got away with hiring you at the age of 14, but that's impressive. They did that. But that's an awesome tenure. And I can't wait to talk a little bit about that, unpack that. But the way that we connected was I had a chance to come up to, we were connected on LinkedIn, but I got a chance to come up and play in your annual golf tournament for the Trinity Foundation, which was a phenomenal tournament. It was a great event, beautiful course in Delaware there. And to hear about what the foundation is doing, I want to start with that today. Let's talk a little bit about the foundation. How did that begin? And why is that so important to your company to have that foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started the Trinity Foundation, gosh, it's probably been at least 15 years ago now. And it sprung out of a need in our community. We had lots of people who wanted to help, right? And so we had all these team members that were, helping on the schools and helping mentor students, and they were helping with food drives, and we were helping with all kinds of things. And so what we found is that we had a lot of other team members that would like to be involved in some of the other events that we were having. And so we ended up pulling together the Trinity Foundation, which is a non-for-profit 501c3 that we founded and is run actually by our team members, by the employees of Trinity. And it's really to help streamline and organize all of those community efforts that we have always been a part of. Trinity has been around for over 45 years. And, through those years, we've had a huge heart for our communities that we operate in all throughout the nation. And so in order to help us streamline and pull together more as a team, that's why the Trinity Foundation was born. And so we have an elected board. We go through an election process, every couple of years for who sits on the Trinity Foundation board. And they help us, organize all of those efforts, whether it's to raise money for the different causes or whether it's to volunteer or whatever that is. So it's a pretty awesome opportunity to be involved.
Well, I love what you guys are doing. And the one thing I remember about being at the event, if you go to a company event, sometimes people are there because they feel like they have to be there. The attitudes might not be that great. But I remember at the event that I went with you, everybody there was super excited to be there. They were very positive, very welcoming, excited to raise money and to see where it was going to go and all of those things. And so I could tell that it was something that there was buy-in from the team, that there's really a lot of value in that. What has that done for the culture of Trinity to have the foundation and to have really a culture of generosity within your company?
I think it's done a few things. One is, when you're on the phones all day and, working in whatever position that you're in, right? Whether you're in ops or sales or whether you're in billing or whatever that looks like, to take time away from your desk and be able to go serve together and be able to bring together a bunch of different people from across the company to go serve together. I don't know that there's a better team building. I just don't. If we're building bikes for kids or we're packing boxes for Thanksgiving to give away. We do that every year. We packed over 250 this year boxes just to be able to give out at Thanksgiving 2 weeks ago. And to be able to see that teamwork, across, the organization is so cool to see, but also just to be a part of. You've got team members that are interacting where they typically wouldn't in their role on the daily basis, but also just the joy that you're bringing those families in the community. I think there's a lot of team spirit that goes into that. But also we always say, we want to leave a legacy. We don't just want to do our jobs for today. We're in this for the long haul, and, to be able to leave a little bit of legacy, wherever we are in the communities that we're in, I think is really impactful for people and gives them a lot of purpose in why we do what we do, not just what we do and do it well. So.
Yeah, it certainly takes the focus off of yourself sometimes, especially when things aren't going well, or just it's always good to take the focus off ourselves in general. What are some of the organizations or charities or initiatives that you guys have in the foundation?
Yeah, so every office, so we have 7 regional service centers across the U.S. Every office has a little bit different way that they like to give back to the community. So for instance, in Texas, they're very involved with the school system down there, and they do a lot of pack the backpack initiatives there, but it's really around what does the heart of the team want to help with, right? So overall, we're really focused on leadership, youth leadership overall. We're focused on health and wellness in each of our different offices and locations. And then we're also really focused on the just the families, helping the families in our specific communities. So that looks a little different depending on what office you're in and what really speaks to the hearts of the people that are in that particular location. So
I love that you guys have that built in, that each location can have a say in what they want to do, because that just creates buy-in as well. And I agree with Graham. If you're not a Trinity fan before this, you should be now for sure. And I want to ask you about that. So do you guys take donations? Can people who are watching this or listening to this actually donate to the foundation? How do they do that?
Yeah, so you can go to the Trinity Foundation website. There's a link right on there, trinityfoundation.org website. If you go to our actual webpage, Trinity Logistics webpage, there's a link right on there to look at the Trinity Foundation. That's probably the easiest way to go look at it. But you can see on there just a lot of the events that we've sponsored. in, a lot of our locations. You can look at the different events that we hold to raise money. A big one is the one that you came to, which is our annual golf tournament. That's a big one that we host every single year. And we have a lot of community members, a lot of our vendors that come, and some of our shippers and carriers actually attend as well. So it reaches beyond just, who we're doing business with, but people in our communities show up to that event too. So
yeah. And is that Seaport, Delaware? Am I getting that right? Is that
Seaford?
Seaford. Okay. I got almost half of it right. I got part of it right. But it's a beautiful part of Delaware. Man, it was really beautiful. I'd never been there before. And I can see why people could enjoy the lifestyle there in that part of Delaware. It was absolutely beautiful. Well, I think it's great what you guys are doing with the foundation. We put the link up there and we'll put it into the comments as well so people can click on it and check it out. Make sure you guys check out what they're doing at Trinity Foundation and consider doing that for your own company as well. I think it's a wonderful thing to do. So Sarah, let's transition for a minute. Let's talk a little about leadership and about your journey in particular, because you graduate college and this is your first job out of college. And as it turns out, your only company that you've worked for since college. Talk about that journey a little bit. And specifically, I'd love for you to focus in on what are some things that you learned along the way that have really helped you now that you're in a leadership role as president?
Yeah. So I started here right out of college. My marketing professor was actually a consultant for Trinity at the time. So that's how I was introduced to logistics. Everybody's like, how do you get in logistics? A lot of people fall in it. And I've heard that story over and over. And I know I'm not the only one. That just really kind of fell really into the logistics space. But my marketing professor was a consultant. He made the introduction to the then owner and CEO, Jeff Banning. And at the time, Trinity was a small company. We had a total team member count of maybe 50 or 60 team members. I think we had maybe 15 to 20 agent offices. And so, right off the bat and meeting the team, I was like, these people are awesome. I grew up in Iowa, right? And everyone says Iowa nice. It's a very real thing. People in Iowa are just very nice. And that's just the culture of Iowa. And so to come all the way out to the East Coast to Delaware, it's like, I don't really know what I'm going to find, but walking in these doors, immediately I was like, these are my people.
These are my people. That's right.
These are my people. These are just my people. And they were immediately just, made that connection of like, I want to be a part of this. I want to be a part of what they're doing. And Jeff had a very big vision of like really wanting to scale the company and take it to the next level. And I got really excited about that opportunity. And I took the position as at the time we called it dispatch. Now we call it logistics specialist. A lot of companies call it carrier sales, but entry level, just booking freight, dispatching trucks, trying to find the best carriers to work with, to put on the freight that we had at the time. And so did that for several years, moved into a leadership, I think a team lead operations role, as we started to grow. And then moved into national account sales where I was, account managing big accounts. And at the time, nobody knew at Trinity what EDI was. And I know it's kind of funny to think about that now, but no one knew what EDI was. We were trying to figure out how to make that happen with our technology team. And I had the pleasure of trying to figure that out and hook up all of those things from a business perspective. And so, so just taking on, different kinds of projects like that didn't necessarily fall in, my role, but saw a need and was willing to just tackle it and figure it out and work with the rest of the team to try to, problem solve. And so I think that's, as I look back and all the moves that I made, and again, operations for a long time, sales for a long time, moved into HR, oversaw our HR team for a while, and just our recruiting efforts and our, what we call team services. So, all the pieces of HR there for a little while, and then moved really into technology. This was before we actually had a CTO and we had just a handful of people on our technology team. And so because of all of the work that I had done with EDI early on, but then deploying all of our operating systems throughout the years, kind of took on that technology role for a minute. I look back on that and wow, that was a big learning experience for sure when you're overseeing all the different pieces of technology. But we had, thank goodness, a very good team who knew what they were doing well more than I did, and just empowering them and making sure we had the right talent on the team was really helpful. And then, coming back in and starting an office, from scratch, from ground zero, and having that experience of greenfielding. And so I look back on all those different moves that I've made in my career. And it's like, at the time, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. Like I had zero experience. I'm like, oh my goodness, but when you have a team that you cheer each other on and you're all in it and problem solving together, you're never alone in solving those things. And so I look back on that and I'm like, I'm so glad that I took the risk in taking those different opportunities on, because, I don't know where I would be if I didn't, right? I don't know that I would still be at Trinity if I had made a different decision there, but thank goodness we had a great team, all the way through those different times. But it's been fun, when you're doing hard things and you're doing it as a group I think that was probably one of the biggest things that I've learned is just sometimes you got to take the risk.
I think that is such a cool story. And the one thing that I recognize from that is that I'm pretty sure you were a marketing major in college because you said your marketing professor connected you. But
minor.
I don't think minor. Okay. But I don't think marketing might be the one department that you didn't actually hit along your journey.
I did have marketing for a while.
Did you? Okay. Because I didn't hear that in there. I thought that would be, that would be pretty normal actually, that you don't do what, like went to school to do. That's pretty common as well. Michael says, what a run straight out of college. Bravo. That's so true. Tripp says, how do you see sales roles evolving over the short and long term? Let's go ahead and answer that question real quick. So Tripp asked that question. How do you see sales roles evolving over the short and long term?
Yeah. That's a really interesting question, because when I was in sales, it's funny, now I go out to the floor and, sit with our sales teams or go on sales calls. And I'm like, wow, this has changed a little bit, but so many of the things that we did that, 20 years ago, even in the business, it's still critical today. And number one is, how well are you building that relationship and helping to solve your customers' problems? I don't think that ever goes away. And I don't think time will ever have that go away in sales. But the sales roles themselves, they've maybe changed a little bit here and there. They're definitely a little more technical now than they used to be, with customer portals and, technology that the customer is asking for and data that the customers are asking for. And they want to be able to see visibility to things and they want it right. And so those customer needs have evolved. And so I think that those sales positions themselves evolve as the customer needs evolve, and staying a step ahead and being that, preferred call when they're stuck on something to say, hey, I need your help. Help me solve this one, and that's where you want to be.
Which always comes back to relationships. It comes back to that, and I think any company has to look at their product and say, okay, is this a product that somebody could sign up for and use without a person? Or is this something that they really need a person to be a part of? And once you figure that out, then you know your sales path. But in logistics, especially, people want to talk to people, know people, and know that they're there. They can trust them, especially if there's a problem, which there are problems. You never have, a week of shipments that don't have a problem in there somewhere along the way. So I think you're right. The technology has helped us be more efficient and do things a little bit quicker. But at the end of the day, that conversation is where it all typically happens still. I don't think that's going to change. I don't know if it's going to change for a long time, except for those self-serve sign-up things. We can buy technology now that we don't need to talk to somebody necessarily. But I think you have to decide, can my product be bought without a person or with a person? And that dictates pretty much the whole process, the whole sales process in many ways. So that's interesting. Okay. All right. We got to pause for a minute, Sarah, because every day on the show, we celebrate the national day. Some national days are big, like Thanksgiving or Veterans Day, and some are just kind of silly. Do you know what today's national day is?
Oh, I don't. What is today's national day?
All right. Well, today's national day is, let me see if we can pull it up here on the screen. Today's national day is National Personal Space Day. I know, it's kind of a weird one. Are you somebody who needs your personal space? Or are you somebody that gets into other people's personal space?
Yeah, I'm probably one of those people. Sometimes I have to say, are you okay with hugging? Like, I'm a hugger. Like, are you okay with
Yeah. See, you're at least polite about it. You ask, I just go right in. I'm a hugger. I go right in.
I've started to ask. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, we'll do a fist bump instead. It's fine.
Yeah, sometimes you got to ask for forgiveness on that one. I'm kind of bad about that. But yeah, I agree with that. I tend to invade people's personal space. But my wife is the opposite. She kind of wants her personal space. And there's sometimes where she wants to sit really close. And sometimes she's like, I just need a little space. Or she's like, could you take the kids and leave the house for just a little bit? I just need a little personal space. So everybody out there who needs your personal space, enjoy the day. It's National Personal Space Day. So it's always kind of weird. So anyways, also we do a random question of the day. All right. Now, Sarah, this question is so random. I haven't seen it yet. We let Ruth, our podcast director, she gets to create this every day. Sometimes they're funny. Sometimes they're serious. Sometimes they're really good. Sometimes they're, average. So let's see what today's random question is. It is, what is the opposite of koala? Like a koala bear? This question might be tricky. I'm not sure I understand. What is the opposite of koala? Alauk? But just spell it backwards. Alauk? I don't know. That's an interesting. Okay.
That's an interesting.
I don't know that koala has an opposite. I don't know. I think I don't even know what that. Have you ever seen a koala bear? By the way, ever seen one?
I have seen a koala bear. Yeah. In fact, I was just watching a show about the koala bears yesterday, which is kind of odd. Yes.
That is odd. The timing on this is impeccable. Well, okay, what's one thing you could share with us?
Devils. Yeah, they were talking about like koala bears and just, they're becoming they are extinct in some areas. And so they were talking about how they are learning about their habitats and trying to bring them back, and the Tasmanian devils and how they're reintroducing them. And anyway, it was very interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah. I don't have much experience with koalas, so I think we're going to pass on that one. I'm going to say that question. I'm going to give that question 2 out of 5. Maybe 1.5 out of 5. I'm not sure that was the best question there, but Ruth does a great job most days, so we'll give her a pass. Not a big deal. All right, so let's transition back to talking a little bit about leadership. I really want to focus in on this because being somebody who is, you've had so many experiences at Trinity, which I think is awesome. By the way, I mean, it's amazing. I didn't know all the different things. I didn't know you were in the tech department. That you managed EDI. So learning new things today, which is awesome. What are some things that you've learned along the way that have really helped you be a strong leader? And the reason I say that, it's not just to compliment you. I've seen your team and how you've worked with your team up close and personal, and I can see how they respect you and how they want to work hard for you. What are some things you've learned about leadership that have really helped you, or some principles that you lead with?
Yeah, I think you don't make it about you, right? Don't make it about you. I think as leaders, and just the opportunity that we have every day to serve our teams, make it about them. Where are they headed? What's their career goals? How can you help them be successful? And I think as leaders, so many times, people get kind of caught up in it. And I've seen that happen, before. And I hope that never happens to me, right? Like, I hope I can guard against that. But what I think has made me successful, for the last 20 years and just taking on these different opportunities, is collaborate a lot, get people's ideas on the table. 3 heads are always better than 1. And I say 3 because 2 isn't even enough sometimes solving tough problems, right? But I really think that so many times when you involve your team, you're asking them for feedback on things. You're not afraid of what they're going to say. You shine big spotlights on ugly areas and just try to solve the problem, and have all the creepy crawly things out on the table and just try to solve it. And do it together, and don't feel like you have to have all the answers, right? But making it about them, making it about solving the problems that we have in front of us, whatever that looks like, I think has been a huge lesson, whether it's technology, whether that's, recruiting, whether that's, supply chain issues that we've been having, whatever that looks like. I think that's been just a huge part of how I've operated and how our team as a whole does operate. So.
Yeah, that's a great one. I think it's easy to lead when things are going well, or easier to lead when things are going well. But one characteristic of great leaders that I've noticed is they're not afraid to deal with the bad. They're not afraid to dig into the problems and try to fix them, because it's so easy to maybe push them off to the side, or not want to deal with them, not want to confront them. But, the leaders that I respect the most are the ones that just say, hey, this is where we're struggling. We're really bad at this area. How are we going to get better? And I want to ask you this question because I think Simon Sinek said this really well. One of the hardest skills as a leader is to ask for feedback and shut up and not taint the responses, because it's so easy to say, hey, here's our problem. Here's what I think we should do. What do you guys think? And that impacts what they're going to say, as opposed to just saying, what do you guys think? And then being quiet. That's a hard skill. That's one of the hardest skills I think as a leader, is to ask for opinions, ask for feedback, and not offer yours right away. How do you navigate that, or how have you learned through that, or what's that been like for you?
Learn to be really uncomfortable in silence. Because so many leaders can't handle it, and then they just start talking. Right. But just get really uncomfortable in silence. And I do these new hire calls. And I remember yesterday I was on one, and it was uncomfortably silent. And I asked a question until somebody spoke up. But get comfortable with that, and not be afraid of what's going to come out, and just know that, listen, everybody has their own experiences that a lot of times dictate how they see things, right? And so being comfortable in that and okay with it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every single suggestion that hits your desk you have to do. It doesn't mean that way. But a lot of times it provides awesome opportunities to explain why we're doing something or why we're not doing something, or why the vision of the company is what it is and why not it's something else, right? So many times I feel like we explain, here's what we're doing and here's where we're headed, and this is what we've got to accomplish, but here's what's not on this list. Here's what we're not saying. And we purposely chose this direction and we're not going to do these things. And I think that helps a lot when you can just get really comfortable in that silence piece and that feedback, allow them to offer it, and then talk through it. So
do you have a story of the most uncomfortable, awkward silence that you've had? Like, what's the longest you've sat in silence in a room like that? Like, have you ever tracked that?
Honestly, I don't know that I've tracked that, but I will say in some of like our what we call OLT, or Operation Leadership Team meetings, there are some long pauses, but a lot of them are operation salespeople. They can't stay quiet, right? So they're way more uncomfortable in that silence than I am. So they like start getting super itchy and bajiggity, I don't answer this question, somebody's got to talk. So
isn't that funny that silence is awkward? I mean, it almost seems comical in a way, but it is. There's something about silence that makes it really uncomfortable. I appreciate like public speakers, for example, who can say something and then pause and just sit in silence for like 5 seconds and just let the audience think about it, because it changes the dynamic. It changes the whole situation. Let me ask you a follow-up question about that. So when your team gives you suggestions or shares their thoughts or their solutions or whatever it is, how do you take that in? What's your next step? Do you ask any follow-up questions? Do you just say thank you? Like tell me a little more about how you dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, so it depends on what it is, right? A lot of times, we do these, what we call coffee chats, where we're taking kind of cross sections of team members across the entire org, jumping on a call with about, 8 to 10 people at a time, and just throwing out some really simple questions. One is, what's one wish you had for your team? One is, what's one thing that's pleasantly surprised you that happened recently? And that's always very interesting. And one is, what's the biggest concern you have right now? What's one of your biggest concerns? And those 3 questions, I think, have led to a lot of really great feedback for us. And so depending on what they say in those things, there's follow-up questions. Sometimes that's a great idea and that's a suggestion that I definitely want to take out of this. And we track it. We have a tracker sheet, and we get together once a month as an executive team, because we're all doing these different meetings in a month and reviewing that information and just saying, okay, what are some things we need to take action on? So depends, but providing that feedback back to them to say, we heard you. Here's what we're doing, right? We're rolling out a new initiative around a sales thing that we're doing. And that came directly out of a coffee chat with a bunch of team members. And it's like, we heard you. We thought this was a great idea. And here's what we're going to do about it. So
it changes the culture when the team feels like their ideas matter and they're being heard. It absolutely changes the culture. One of my favorite follow-up questions, and I got this from one of my college professors who was really good at this, is a question is, well, what leads you to believe that, or what leads you to think that? What leads you, like, where did that come from? Because it helps understand the perspective of that. And for me, as the person who was offering opinions or offering thoughts, it helped me solidify and or challenge my opinions. Like, well, why do I think that? Where did that come from? And sometimes that digs into some really interesting conversations as well. So I think follow-up questions for those types of things are really valuable. Love the fact that you do that, and that you guys have initiatives each month with your team. That's got to be a great retention builder for your team, because they just feel like, hey, I'm appreciated here. Little things like that, which doesn't cost you much, but time, right? I mean, it just costs you some time.
And I don't think you could ever do it enough, right?
Yeah.
Like we get feedback that these are great, but then it's also, you take a survey and they're like, we want more of it. Like, you can never do that enough. And that's always something to keep in mind too, because it's not like you need to stop doing it when you're getting that feedback. It's like, how can we do more of those types of things where people are being able to collectively come together and talk through that? So I love that. Well, we're going to end on that. That's a really great ending point and a great tip for everybody to follow out there. So if you are a leader asking questions of your team, make sure that you do that regularly and some follow-up on that. Follow through. I think the biggest thing is to follow through. Don't just take it, but actually do something with it. Sarah, thanks so much for being on the show. Hopefully you'll come back and visit us again real soon. And I hope that I get a chance to get back up there and play in the golf tournament. That'd be a lot of fun. That'd be awesome. I love it.
No,
That sounds great. We'd love to see you. All
that'd be
right.
great. And everybody else, make sure you come back tomorrow for our guest, Kyle Malacher. We're going to talk about his new role as Chief of Staff at Fox Logistics. It's going to be a great show. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a wonderful middle of your week. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you.